The big question, exactly what are the rules when it comes to marijuana and work now that it's legal in Massachusetts? Of course, you wouldn't expect to be allowed to smoke on the job, but what about on your own time? One local woman recently found out that was a no-go the hard way when she fell, as I said, hurt herself at work, and after she later reported the injury, she failed a drug test and was fired. While this is a case of one person, it's an issue that could affect thousands across the state. I'm joined now by Bernadette Coughlin, who was fired by her employer, Sodexo, a food services and facilities management company, along with her attorney. He was not fired, David Hadas. David, it's good to meet you, too. Bernadette, thank you so much for being here. Was your fall related to your marijuana use?
No, not at all.
And how long before your fall had you most recently used it?
Before my fall?
Yeah.
Probably 3 days, 4 days.
And how long before you were actually tested that you'd...
6 days after.
I read in the Globe story, I think it was by Nestor Ramos, that,
yes.
that you don't even drink
the
night before because why?
Because I would be groggy and things like that, and I'm not as young as I used to be, and it's just I just don't
careful.
feel that. Yes.
So it's horribly unfair, as I'm sure virtually everybody sitting at home thinks what happened to this woman is. It appears to me from the reading I've done that it is legal to fire someone if they use a legal substance, marijuana, away from work and unrelated to work. They can still fire the person. Is that not the state of the law?
Not necessarily.
How so?
So in Massachusetts, we have what's called the Privacy Act, which says that residents of Massachusetts are free from having their privacy interfered with unreasonably. And there has been court scrutiny of drug testing programs in the employment context in the past. And it's a case-by-case basis,
so
but it has to be reasonable.
Reasonable being that it has to be in some ways related. If she were a pilot, you'd say it is totally reasonable.
Exactly.
But it's not reasonable related to her work record and what her job function is. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, that's the factor that courts look at most often is what is the nature of the person's job? Are they handling dangerous substances? Are they operating heavy equipment? Things like that. So that might fall on one side of the line. If you're an office worker or some other worker where there's no great danger, you're going to fall on the other side of the line. And
but just so it's clear, as of the moment, while the high court in the state has ruled that if you have a medical marijuana card, they can't do to you what they did to Bernadette, there's no ruling or statute that protects her, even if you're right about these privacy policies. Is that a fair statement of fact?
No, I think there's some court precedent for what I just said, which is drug testing that an employer imposes on the employees has to be reasonable under the facts of the case. So,
what is their, by the way, you should read their statement they sent to us. You've probably seen something like Sodexo complies, it's from the company. Sodexo complies with law and recognizes this is an evolving legal and social issue. As many employers are currently doing, we're evaluating our policies in light of the changing landscape. As there is an active claim relating to this matter, obviously we're unable to provide additional details at this time. You're not working now. Are you working now?
No.
You lost your benefits?
Everything.
Everything. What's your work record
just
like?
Like that. Excellent.
What was your most recent evaluation like?
Excellent. Good and excellent.
And I saw in the Nestor Ramos story, your coworkers rave about you, both as a mentor, as a coworker.
Yeah.
So when this happened, when you go in, you have this test, and then I assume you saw HR or something? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I had the test on Tuesday, and then HR called me on Wednesday, and they suspended me without pay, and then the same day they said while I was under investigation, and then that same day HR called me and she asked me some questions, and then she fired me.
What did that feel like?
I can't even. I've never been fired in my life
from any job
ever.
So when you heard those words, when you knew you had done nothing wrong, you used a drug that is perfectly legal, as legal as alcohol is, which I'm sure virtually everybody, including your employer, drinks. What did that feel like to you?
Honestly, the first thing that I thought about was the kids that work for me, because we were like a family. They're like a real family. Sorry. we're like a real family there, and I love the kids. They love me. We were doing a great job. Patient services were high, which is very important.
Of course it is. Is there any indication they're rethinking this?
We don't know. We just filed the arbitration demand yesterday. So
You know, even if you're right about the law, and obviously you have a bias, but regardless, you state in the law as you see it, everybody at home who's watching this, and I assume it's thousands and thousands of people who know it's now legal, who are going to choose, well, instead of a drink tonight, I'll do a vape or something like that, they are at risk as of this moment, are they not? Even if your interpretation of the law is right, because obviously the interpretation of some companies is different from yours, right?
yeah, it's infuriating because employers control you during your shift. Okay, they tell you what to do, they tell you when to do it, they tell you what not to do. When you go home at night, I mean, you should, in the privacy of your own home, the employer shouldn't be monitoring what you do and what you don't do.
There's no effect on your work.
Not only that, but now it's legal.
So what do you say to people watching at home who want to do exactly what she did, but say, well, wait a second, I could have an employer like, what's your advice until this is resolved either in courts or I assume you both think the legislature should clarify, I assume, what the rules of the road are. What's your advice to the next Bernadette who's sitting at home and is now worried?
I would say be careful because employers have these policies. We don't know. I can't, guarantee how it's going to shake out in court or, in our case, in front of an arbitrator. So it is a risk. The legislature, it would be great if they got involved.
Last thing, how long do these kinds of arbitrations generally take?
It's within a year, generally.
So potentially the issue of Bernadette's employment with the kind of record she had could not be resolved for a year if there's no deal with the employer.
That's true. That's true. And in court, it might be a little longer.
Let's hope it happens faster. And Bernadette, I wish you luck. I wish you a speedy recovery on your wrist.
Thank you.
I wish you luck in this
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you, Jim.
David. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.